Today, we will begin our journey about the Pantheon, an ancient marvel that still wows people today. It has a dome, which is the first of its kind. The pillars are 39 feet tall, 5 feet in diameter, and weigh 60 tons. There are 18 pillars. The Pantheon, by Cole Nelson and Mason Hofer. The Pantheon is located in Rome, Italy, in the Piazza della Rotonda. The Pantheon was commissioned by Marcus Agrippa during the Augustus reign. He was the original constructor of the Pantheon. The name is constructed into the stone in the Pantheon's frieze. Hadrian was the emperor that rebuilt the Pantheon in 126 AD after it was burnt down. The Pantheon today is used for a church on religious days and a tomb. Buried in the tomb are two painters, Raphael being one of them, and a composer and an architect. Columns used in the Pantheon were made of marble coming from Egypt. Once the marble was mined from quarries, it was put on a barge and sailed to Italy. Once the pillars made it to Italy, they were put on trees and rolled to the construction site. The dome of the Pantheon is known as the Rotunda. It is made of concrete, 4,535,000 metric tons of concrete. There are hidden chambers in the Rotunda that reduce its weight. It still looks the same today as it was when it was built because of these chambers. The ceiling of the Pantheon used to be made of bronze, but during World War II, Pope Urban VIII, who was the Pope at that time, had it melted down. It was melted down to create bombards to protect another ancient building from being destroyed in the war. Portico is Italian for porch, leading to an entrance of a building or extended as a colonnade, with a roof structure over a walkway, supported by columns or enclosed walls. This idea was widely used in ancient Greece and has influenced many cultures, including most Western cultures. The pillars in the portico are Corinthian. There used to be a flight going upward along the portico, but it was eliminated when the Pantheon was rebuilt for the second time. The columns on the Pantheon are 50 Roman feet tall. The capitals on the Pantheon, the ones that are above the columns, are 10 Roman feet tall. Altogether, they are 60 Roman feet tall. The interior of the Pantheon is very special to many people. It was intended to symbolize the arch vault of the heavens. The oculus at the dome's apex and the entry door are the only natural sources of light. It is the best preserved building in Rome. A lighting effect on April 21st can be viewed when the midday sun strikes a metal grill above the doorway, saturating the courtyard outside with light. Fountain of the Pantheon. It was commissioned by Pope Gregory VIII, and it's located in the same plaza that the Pantheon is located, the Piazza della Rotonda. It was designed by a guy with the last name Della Porta in 1575 and sculpted out of marble. It was sculpted out of marble by Leonardo Sormani. The Pantheon and the fountain are both located in the same part of Rome. The statues of Augustus and Agrippa stood at the end of the aisles to the entrance of the Pantheon, right out in front of the fountain. The square in front of the Pantheon was not always as lively as it is today. Today it is very vibrant with cafes, shops, and almost anything. But back in medieval times, it was not the place you'd want to be. The square was full of taverns that concluded fights at the night, and there were pickpockets everywhere. Some still today, but back then it was not very good at all. And there's vendors walking around at night. Some are legal, some are illegal, but most are illegal. And it just wasn't the place to be back then. Until Pope Pius VII in the early 1800s decided to change that. He made them redo the square completely and changed everything about it. And today, only thing today that the square has in common back then is the few pickpockets. Now it's clean, vibrant, and a place everyone wants to be. Along with the taverns, the vendors in the streets were all illegal, and they had shops where they made all their trinkets or housed their animals that obstructed the view of the Pantheon. And most of the animals did not live in sanitary conditions. There were birds and poultry that were living in mud. It was disgusting. The smells were often almost too much to endure, and they never really did much to clean it. The pavement was slippery, covered in filth, and the thieves were ravaging these vendors, so these vendors had no time for humans to look at the Pantheon. It was all sell and try and survive. The Pantheon not only inspired many Renaissance masters like Brunelleschi and Michelangelo to create the domes of the Duomo of Florence and St. Peter's Basilica, but it has also inspired the contemporary architects who paid homage to the ancient monument. There are 5 famous buildings that were inspired by the Pantheon. The Jefferson Memorial, a presidential memorial in Washington, D.C. dedicated to Thomas Jefferson, an American founding father. The Lowell Memorial Library, the administrative center of Columbia University, built in 1985. The National Gallery of Art, the National Art Museum in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Capitol Building, and the Pantheon in Paris, originally built as a church dedicated to St. Genevieve in Paris, now as a museum. The obelisk on top of the Fountain of the Pantheon was not erected on the top of the Pantheon. It is an actual Egyptian obelisk. Obelisk is something that the Romans fantasized. It was symbolized the relationship between the gods and the pharaohs. The obelisk itself is believed to have represented a solid ray of sunlight, a vessel for communication between the realms of heavenly gods and earthly mortals. The obelisks were often erected in front of temples dedicated to many sun gods or things like that in Egypt. And therefore, many Egyptians' obelisks were brought to Rome to celebrate the gods in front of the temples. Thank you for coming on this wonderful journey to the Pantheon with us. Hope you learned everything that I know about it and more.